Our next presenter for today is Marcin Sikorski, who will be presenting IoT Connect the World, but not the people, except lawyers. Marcin is a public speaker, writer, tester, influencer, mentor, specialist of Internet of Things and Industry 4.0, working in IT since 2013. He is the author of the book Real IT World, Internet of Things, and currently working on his second book. He is an advisor for the Polish government IoT department and CPK in the area of where the IoT can be implemented in Poland and how exactly this can be achieved. He currently is working with smart solutions for nuclear power plants. Also, he is a member of the Poland Hong Kong Business Association and SJSI, who after hours teaches companies how to understand smart transformation and Chinese culture. Please welcome Marcin. Marcin, the screen is yours to share.
Thank you. Hello, guys. I'm happy to be here and to be talking to you about the topic of Internet of Things and especially the topic of law. And I know you might be thinking, why we gonna be speaking about the laws? It's gonna be boring, right? It's not as sexy as the technology by itself, especially that today we are talking about testing. And well, technology is important, not laws. And I will show you that you are wrong. And I will show you why it's really, really important for everyone, both for developers and testers and product owners and everyone who is involved in creating the products. But let's start with a simple story to give you a better background. You see, back in the day, a few years ago, I was involved in the smart project, the project that was creating, smart bandana. And the smart bandana was quite innovative back in the day. It was going to get a lot of data from the user. It was gonna be, available to pay with it. You could send and receive SMS and the voice calls. That was quite innovative. And everything was great. The client thought it's gonna be a huge success, and it was. But 2 weeks after the release, we discovered that someone in Russia copied our application, and it was selling as a different application on their market. And it might sound funny because, yeah, we forgot about small obfuscation, and someone did reverse engineering of our application, but it wasn't funny. It wasn't fun. Our client, believe me, thought that we were spies. They thought that we did on purpose, and well, the atmosphere wasn't the greatest. So this was the beginning of my journey to try to understand three simple things like trust, ethics, and the law. And well, to my surprise, no one knew anything about it. No one was discussing about it. Everyone was focused on the technology, the functionalities, but not the laws, trust, and ethics. So today, I will show you why it's important. First of all, why we have this problem that no one understands it and no one speaks about it. Second, what are the three approaches from the current companies in the Europe, how to tackle this problem in a wrong way. And finally, what can you and we all do to better understand it and to implement it even after this presentation. So let's begin and let's go once again back in time. Let's go to the 17th century with the book called The Criminal Persecution and Capital Punishment of Animals. You see, in the 17th century, people had a very strange hobby. They took animals to the courtroom and, well, they sentenced them to death. If you look at the list of all of the possible sentences from the beginning of the 17th century to the end of the 17th century, this is only the small chunk. You will see they took, horses and asses and worms and mares and other animals and sentenced them to death. And you might think, okay, people had too much free time, right? But no, the explanation was quite the opposite, and the explanation was quite simple. You see, 17th century was the boom of technology. We had better telescopes, we had a better mechanical pumps, we had a better mass production for the books and stuff like this. So all of a sudden, everything people knew about astronomy, math, science, there was no longer available. It was updated with more and more precise devices. So people were afraid. They thought, oh my God, technology gonna change my world. It's gonna change it so drastically that what's the point of even living, right? Let's go with the anarchy. Let's do crazy stuff. So the court rooms decided to do something crazy. They showed people, whoa, chill out, man. Everything is fine. The law is the same for you as people. The law is the same for the animals, you see, and the law will be the same for anyone who discovered this magical technological miracle. So chill, everything is fine. And you might think, okay, people are stupid. But the same can be said about people right now. You see, if I show you something like this, if you were a regular person, I was told you, look, IoT, the Internet of Things, you have a sensor, you have edge computing, you have neural networks, there's cloud, there's this AI and machine algorithms, there is cognitive feedback, there is big data engine and stuff like this. People are like, what is this? I don't understand what you're showing to me. I'm not tech savvy person. I have no idea what you are showing to me. This is, it sounds interesting, but no, I'm not interested in that. And the problem goes on and on and on. You see, if I show you some of the smart devices available on the market, like smart bottle that shows you what's the temperature of the bottle, it costs just $100. Or maybe smart flask that you have a special application that give you information about the flask. Or maybe some smart trolley that can run next to you. You might think, okay, that's cool, but this is it. This is this technology, this amazing miracle of technology. People don't understand it. And to be honest, and to be quite frank, the reason is quite simple. In the IoT industry, the modern consumers are byproducts of innovation. And I know it sounds bad for us, but think about it. We just talk about testing and technology and everything is cool and great. And then we put the device on the market and let's forget about it. Let's create another great device, another great stuff from the Internet of Things. And yeah, we just maybe think about UI, UX. That's good. But what happens if something bad happens? Yeah, it's not a problem for me, right? It's their problem. And this creates a lot of tension. This creates a lot of tension between everyone because it is just overload of information for everyone. You as a people who are working in the industry and them as a people who are buying the IoT, because no one understands anything, to be honest, when it comes to the bad things. And I'm not talking about security. I'm talking what happens if something bad happens. Look, if I ask you right now 4 simple questions: who, what, where, and what if? Like, who should you inform if something bad happens? Do you have some sort of point of contact that you can contact if something bad happens right now in the middle of the night? What will you do exactly, step by step, if there's going to be some dysfunction of your IT device? Where do you store even data when it comes to backup and restoring it? How fast do you do it? And what if, for example, you want to create a version 2.0 or 3.0 or another device in the family of IoT devices? Do people even, can give as a granted that those devices will be working with the previous one? Or will you just shut down those previous and go with the next one and so on and so on? And I know maybe some of you are testing, databases. You might think, dude, we are doing this right now. But believe me, in the world of IoT, with the devices, with data, with the communication, hardware and software, there's too much happening and people just tend to forget about it. They're like, oh, faster and faster and faster and faster, and forget about what's gonna happen if something bad happens. And this is gonna be crazy, maybe for some of you, but if you go with the law, if you try to study law, especially in Poland, you will discover that holy moly, the laws right now in Poland are crazy when it comes to IoT. For example, did you know that you and the code that you are creating is the same as if you're creating a poetry? If you take the regulation from 1994 and 1991, those two are still relevant. In them, you might find the code that you're creating is, well, technically words and sentences, and it is secured the same as if you are creating a book or writing a literature or maybe writing a poetry. So from now on, today you learn that you are no longer a test automation specialist, but you are a creator of poetry. And you might be saying, oh, you are kidding, but no, I'm not kidding. This is one of many quirky things that you will discover in the Polish law. And this stuff's gonna get crazier, so buckle up because you will discover magical world of the laws, especially in Poland. But let's forget for a second about it. You might think, okay, you talked a little bit about the code, but the IoT is different, right? There is a hardware and software and environment. You're right. So if you go to something called European Journal of Law and Technology, the volume from 2016, the people back then tried to understand if IoT is as complex as I'm saying, and how should we treat it when it comes to the law? And the conclusion was quite scary because, let's quote their lawyers, they said that the attempt to treat each element separately in a manner that seems either at best unworkable or at worst nonsensical. In other words, should we treat each element separately, like a box, hardware box, software box, and communication box, and we are producer box, and we are tester box, and this is developer box, and stuff like that? Or is it a big, huge one box, and we should create laws that are very specific for this one part of the huge box? And this way, it is unworkable. This way, it's nonsensical. So, oh my God, what's we gonna do? And as you're going to see, the solutions that we came up are, well, right now quite bad, because there are three approaches from the company. How should we treat it? First approach is something I like to call leave it as it is. This is most of the companies that are, getting used to creating application or websites. All of a sudden, they come to the IoT world and they say, okay, we need to be agile. We need to shift left. We need to do the fancy stuff that everyone else is doing because it's going to adapt and be the same with IoT, right? Not really. Let's give you an example. If you take, for example, smart doll, a simple smart doll, a smart toy for your children, 5 to 6 years old, it was supposed to be a device that your children work and teach and learn and stuff like this. Cool stuff, right? Not really, because right now it is banned all around the world because it is easy to hack, it is easy to sniff, and it is easy to get information about your small children. And let's go to the court, to the US court that will give us a transcript of the questions asked to the people who created this device. And oh my, it's gonna be fun because they ask you, okay, what type of questions did you hard coded for the device to ask the children? And the answer was scary because the doll could ask your children, what's your name? What's your mommy, daddy's name? What's your favorite meal? Where do you live? Where do you go to school? And so on and so on. Quite strange way of playing with the kid, if you ask me. But okay, maybe, just maybe, there's a reason for that. Maybe we should go to the privacy policy. Maybe there's information. How should we treat it? And once again, the privacy policy is very peculiar because it says the privacy statement may be updated from time to time, so you might wish to check it each time you submit personal information to us. In other words, imagine you're using Google, maybe any device, smartphone or something like this, and each and every time you use it, you're supposed to go to the privacy policy and check if something happened and changed because this might impact you as a user. That's nonsense. That's crazy. But this is what they did. So, live with it. Security, another thing. The application required a security because you want to secure your application. That's good, right? What's bad is, once again, the fact that every single application and DAO on the market, every single one had the same hard-coded equation, 11 plus 16 equals. If you answer it, well, we're happy to inform you, you have access to everything in this application. You might use it however you wish to use it. That's scary. But, they said we gave you some sort of security, so you cannot blame us that someone, knew what's the 11 plus 16. We are safe here, right? But one last thing. What happens if you want to delete the data, right? It is not always possible to completely remove or delete all of your information from our databases without some residual data because of backups and other reasons. But we'll try, at least try, to do anything that it will not affect you in any way. Oh, so you're saying you cannot delete my data I gave to you in some way, or maybe you stole from me, and you're just saying, oh, we can try at least our best. Like, this is nonsense. But this is something that comes from companies that are used to creating very quickly, very fast, rapidly applications or websites or stuff like this, and they don't think with the macro view. And this is very problematic because think about smart doll or like this toy that can be hacked and can tell your son, for example, you're fat, you're ugly, no one likes you, you should kill yourself, and your parents wish you to be dead. And scary part is the fact that this is a real example, and this is available to do it quite easily, and someone bought this toy, and the problem is real. And let's go even further. Imagine you create smart sort of smart contact you put in your eye. It's based on the tears of your user. It measures the glucose level, and based on the glucose level, it can send information to your wireless smart bandana or to your doctor if everything is fine with you or not. Imagine you have for some point time a bad data to be stored in this application because, well, you didn't imagine something, or maybe there's some memory leakage or stuff like that. Can you take responsibility for death of those people? Most of the companies don't think in terms of that because, oh, we are too small. Oh, we come from the very small country. No one will hack us. It happens, guys. It happens, especially with small players, because big know how to handle this. Big know how to secure it. They have money. They have time. You, on the other hand, don't have this privilege. Second approach, be very specific, the opposite way. Maybe, just maybe, you want to go with the different approach. Maybe you want to be very, very specific. Each and every information should be according to the law. So you go to, let's say, California legislative law, the bill 327, that was supposed to be opus magnum for everyone who is creating IoT. And everyone were happy in the United States. We created the greatest document ever. But a few weeks after the release, the lawyer said, oh no, this is a bad, because it suggests that the manufacturers of the software cannot be held strictly liable for the software defects, right? Because the software is not a product, it's a service. So in other words, imagine if this law was in Poland, you are not a coder, but you are a poetry maker, and you do not create a product, but you create a service. This is crazy, but this is happening right now. In each and every country, each and every big legislation is treated differently, and this creates a lot of tensions and problems because no one understands this correctly, even if you try to go law by law. But think about it. Think about a different thing. Think about maybe that we created the best smart bandana or smart speaker in the world. What would you do if one night you receive an email in which you have information, look guys, your device will be used in the court because you store data and this data is valuable and it is going to be a part of the evidence. Wait, what? What are you talking about? Well, this is a real scenario. In 2018, the guy in the white skirt, he came to the court with the information that his house was burned down. He wanted, to go to the bank and say, look, guys, I have a big insurance and you have to pay me because my house burned down. The problem was he had a pacemaker, the small IoT device you put on your heart, and the data showed that he was too excited to be sleeping, and it showed as if he was doing something, bad, as if he was burning down his own house. And it was true, it was the case here. But what's crazy was the fact that every single lawyer said something like this: it is fundamentally unfair to say to a person the functioning of your body and the record of it related to illness that you have. It is something that the government should then be able to take and use to incriminate a person. In other words, yes, he might be a thief or rapist or murderer, or maybe he burned down his house. Yes, maybe he has a medicine condition, some problem, but we shouldn't use this data. Oh, no, 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 no. This is his personal data and only for him to use. And if you look at this guy, he was if you look at the beginning of those courts, he was very sure he's not only going to win, but he's going to be the first person in US and even in the whole world that won with the court, and no one can use the data from now on. So he was quite sure. Remember, this face is going to be quite relevant in the 2 minutes in the future that I will show it to you. Anyway, between 2018 and 2019, there was a lot of lawyers that created a lot of documentation, very sophisticated documentation like pacemakers and the Fourth Amendment, in which they said, in the sanctity of the home, all details are intimate details. Similarly, within the sanctity of the human body, all details are intimate details. Once again, the human body in data of you is only for you, and no one can use it in the courtroom and as an evidence. They went so far that said something like, look, this is like stealing. The government is stealing from you the data and using it against you. That's not fair. But surprise, surprise, for the question, is using pacemaker data stealing personal information? The answer was no. By the end of 2019, the judge said, are you crazy? Are you really that crazy? If I can have a court instead of 6 months for 6 weeks because I have data, of course I'm going to use it. That's going to be quite relevant for me. And if you look at the face of this guy, he knew he screwed up. He knew it because not only had a big few years sentence, but also he was the first guy that, well, in some way created a new path for us as a creators of IoT. By which I'm saying, look, maybe you're a small team from small country and you think, okay, my device won't be relevant in the future. It might be. Look, guys, it might be, because this is not a one simple example. This is happening right now in the US and in Europe, and it's gonna get bigger and worse for you if you're not gonna think in the macro perspective. But let's go with the third approach, because I told you about let's do it the old way, let's do it the new way. And there's the final approach, which I like to call let's hide it. And in this approach, you have a company, and some of you might say, okay, maybe we created the smart application and website the old way, but I heard that the regulations are quite important, right? Or maybe you said, you know what, IoT is quite complex. Well, maybe we should think about some gray area in which we can cover some things we are creating. Let's be agile, but still let's be secured in some way, because we want to be okay with our customers. And this is what's going to happen if you go with this approach. This is a smart application. A smart application that is quite popular in the United States, that you can buy smart bandana, you can download the application, you can track and take pictures of your medicine, and based on the data you have stored based on your health device and the pictures you're making, the machine learning algorithm will tell you, okay, I think this medicine is good for you, you should still use it, or maybe it's not good for you, maybe you should rarely use it, and stuff like this. It sounds sophisticated, but honestly it's crap. It's just working because it's working. But the point is if you read the privacy policy, and if you track what is this application, this is gonna quite be interesting, because the application by itself has 9 trackers and 22 permissions that are required from the user to use this application. Too much, to be honest, but still people are like, okay, next, I'm permissioning everything because it's good for me. And 9 trackers, yeah, who should know that the application is tracking everything and sending the information to the third companies, right? No one reads the privacy policy, no one reads it. And the policy says something like this: if you want to delete, for example, your stored data, we'll use commercially reasonable efforts to honor your request. So yes or no? Oh, no. We don't use the words yes and no. We're using commercially reasonable efforts. What does it mean? Our lawyers know what does it mean. So it's a wishy-washy grayish area. And you might say, okay, but this is for the old people using, some smart condition health devices. I'm not a person like that. Maybe. But maybe you're using smart fitness applications that are tracking your, steps, or you're riding a bike or swimming, or maybe a few years ago you were there was very popular this application that tested your DNA, and maybe you downloaded it to check who's your grand ancestor, right? Now, if you read once again this application, you will discover it has 12 trackers, 19 permissions. Okay, similar to the previous application. But what is very interesting is the fact what says the privacy policy. And the privacy policy, oh my God, is crazy, because it says in the first sentence, we do not share your individual personal information with third parties. So I say, oh my God, cool company, great company. They don't sell the information. That's awesome, right? Well, a few sentences later, you say, you read something like this: but we might share the following categories of personal information. Wait, what? You might share the identifiers like name, address, email, or account information, or group credit card, or audio and visual information, or maybe health information with biological traits. So in other words, if someone comes to the company and say, look guys, you have a lot of data and it's useful, can you sell it to us? They will say, no, we cannot sell it to you. We do not sell information, but we can sell you some categories. And which categories do you wish to buy? And you might say, oh, whoa, the creators of this app are not fair, right? But believe me, this happens to many different IoT application devices, and it's getting more and more serious. And you might think right now, okay, this is not for me because we are a cool, small company. It might impact you in some way if you're gonna buy this device. So I just think the topic of how should we handle this problem is quite important. So how should we handle it? The next sentence will sound a little, let's call it hippie, but stay with me. We should have the future needs to be built on the ethical culture. What does it mean? Imagine this: 20 years ago, the tester was like, okay, we might need this person, but whatever, he's just a tester. But now he's a must. 10 years ago, the UX person was like, okay, maybe we're gonna need it, but who cares? Right now, he's a very important person of our team. And the same should be treated with the lawyers in your company. You should take them to the project and ask them questions, because if you're right now saying, okay, whatever, we might take them, in the future there's going to be a huge impact of those people on what we are doing right now with the IoT. And you might be thinking, how can we pick them, the UX person, the tester, the developer, and the person who is creating and understanding the laws? And the answer is quite simple: create pictorial versions of your privacy policy. This is the new trend that is spreading like wildfire on the market right now. And basically, it's like this: you take UX specialists, you take the lawyer, you take people who create your device, or the whole ecosystem. You take the product owner and you ask them, look guys, instead of making words that no one reads because it's boring, let's make a simple pictures that even 5-6-year-old can understand. Simple way of understanding what we are selling and how it works. And this is great way, because all of a sudden people better understand it. Developers, tester, lawyers, everyone understands this better, so it's a benefit for everyone. Now, I know you must think, oh, hey, look, guy, that's cool, but time is not on our side. We don't have time for this. What should we do? And the answer is for you quite simple. Use the recommendation for IoT devices manufacturers. This is something that was created by the Department of US. And basically, it's like a huge checklist that you should check and use what is inside. And if you do it, more or less, you're safe with all of the laws, all of the words. And yeah, you should be okay if something bad happens. And you might be thinking, wait, what? If you are giving this to us, why not everyone is using that? Well, the answer is, as always, either they don't care, they don't know, they don't want to, or they think, oh, we are better than someone from US. We know exactly what we're doing. We were doing the same, stuff for the last 20 years. So IoT, IoT is the same as creating application, but just with some sort of hardware and maybe the communication, easy, right? The recommendation says three things, basically. First of all, identify expected customers and define expected use cases. You ever did a profiling of your people who are gonna use the final customer of your device? Well, start to. There's a huge difference between person who is very old and trying to like 20 times press the same option on and off because he's not quite sure, and person who is skipping everything and like drastically clicking just to be sure, bam, 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 it's working from scratch in 5 seconds. Identify those people. This is quite important. It's not like think from book like, okay, the 20 version of how should we do tests besides unit tests and functional tests. Oh, do profiling maybe in the future. No, do it right now. In the IoT world, is quite important. Second, research customer cybersecurity goals, in which, I mean, if you know who's going to use it, not the final users, but the profiling, think what's the worst case that for each and every person might happen, how they will act in the terms of this problem, and what can you do to secure them, and also make sure if this is something that happens, they will be informed in the correct way. There's a huge difference between a person who is old and not reading every single message on your Facebook wall, and person who is very drastic savvy tech with email on the Yahoo Gmail or any other Outlook, who's F5 checking every single email. That's huge difference in working with those people. And finally, determine how to address customer goals and support them. You know who's going to use it. You know what's going to be the problem. Tell also your client, look, if this is going to happen in the future, it's going to cost you. Look, if we have fire drills, why not have a fire drill for IoT ecosystem? Let's just check for 1 hour. It's going to cost you, I don't know, X amount of money, but it's going to be way cheaper than having a bad PR in the future. And maybe we have time for this right now instead in the future where everything is burning down. But still, you might be saying, okay, give me a proof. Give me a proof that this will also impact me. Okay, I'm gonna give you a report from the ending of 2019 called Consumer Attitude Towards IoT Security, created by Caramba Security. Basically, they ask a lot of people about the security of IoT. They ask them questions like, do you expect your customer IoT device to be secured by the manufacturer? 74% said, yes, that's exactly what I'm supposed to have when I'm buying this device. Okay, but you might be thinking, if we don't secure it right now, maybe we can hotfix in the future. Maybe this is the way. This has been always the way for us. Maybe this is going to be also right now. And the answer for this question is quite scary, because do you consider an IoT device secure if it needs over-the-air updates? 42% said no, which means you might do photo update, you might give them hotfix, but 42%, almost half of your people, your customers, will think, okay, you know what, I'm not buying from this company, I'm not buying this product, I'm not buying the IoT whatsoever, forget about it. Think about it, 50% of your people, after you do one simple hotfix, might think, okay, you know what, forget about it. What is even more crazy and scary is the fact, do you think it is the responsibility of the connected device manufacturer to secure the product from hacks? 87% says yes. This is what I'm thinking. So I don't have time to read a manual as a customer. I don't have time to read every single paragraph and regulation, stuff like this. It is your job as a tester, your job as a developer, your job as a people who are creating those devices to secure me. And don't think about even updating this in the future. Think about this right now, because if you do it, 50% of your customers, bye, I forget about you, I forget about this company and this device. Now, to finalize it, to give you some glimpse of what's going to happen in the future. This is a proof of concept that is discussed right now, both in Europe and United States, and also in Asia in some way. How do you, create a simple way to inform the customer who's buying IoT what's inside? And this is a sample of a sticker that should be a standard and will be a standard in the future, where you have the information about the firmware, the device is manufactured in which country, how do you update, or is there any security update whatsoever, and how long will you update this device? Do you store data or even sell the data to some third parties or stuff like this? Everything about the privacy policy, or even a simple QR code in which if you scan it with your mobile phone, you will be moved to a website in which you can check exactly what is here, but in more details. So I'm not saying stuff that is just maybe theory and maybe in the future and maybe just going to be a huge problem. No, it's happening right now. And as I said a few years ago, that testers need to be prepared for our IoT, that it will change the rules of the games. I'm still standing on my position. The same goes with the laws and regulations. You need to at least know it in some way. Because to summarize in one simple statement, trust is hard to define, but we do know when it's lost. In other words, the customer will know exactly when he will trust when he will lose the trust for you. He will know exactly when not to trust you anymore. So I'm just saying this. Look, guys, maybe laws and regulations are not as sexy and tech. I get it. But still, please, at least try to read about it. At least try to, I don't know, make it as something extra in your time instead of checking the YouTube videos. If you have free time, just think about the laws and regulation, because it might secure you, both in terms of developers and testers who are creating the IoT devices, and also the customers and consumers by the end, because they want to feel trust and ethics and that the law is still on their side. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever about what I just said when it comes to laws and regulations, feel free to ask me right now or in the future. You can contact me via my email, via my website, via my podcast, or here you have a QR code for my LinkedIn, or you can read my books, in which I also try to cover as much as possible about IoT and also about the laws and regulations, because yeah, it's a hard to swallow pillow, but still manageable. So I try to do my best to give you this as an example of why the laws and regulations are quite important, especially for you. Now, thank you, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Thank you for that amazing and also kind of crazy presentation. It's really scary what we're dealing with these IoT devices. You know, the first thing that came to my mind when I was listening to you was Elon Musk's Neuralink, where we're basically going to have an IoT antenna attached to our head, and hackers are going to be able to hack our minds, basically brainwaves, and to be able to sell our brainwaves to third party individuals is going to be quite crazy. So it's I agree, these regulations are a must. But anyways, now is time for questions and answers. This is the time to type in your questions on Discord if you have any questions right now. In the meantime, I would have one question for you, because the regulations you were kind of referring to were mostly mainly to products. What about when we're starting to create smart cities? Because right now, how I understand is these products I buy as a customer, and then it's like kind of my responsibility to accept those guidelines, which is when they later sell it to third parties and whatnot. And I could personally not agree to do that and just not accept those guidelines. But what if we start having these smart cities and we have these smart devices everywhere, smart cameras watching us, and we don't want them to collect information about us that we visited a store that day and whatnot. So, do these regulations apply also to like these kind of IoT devices for future smart cities and things like that?
Okay, to answer this question, long story short, when you think about IoT, you have to think about like two types of IoT. One is for customer and consumers, smart bandanas and stuff, like you can go to any market and buy it. And other is the industrial one. When it comes to industrial, the problems I'm showing to you right now, they don't exist as much, because industry like automotive or health or stuff like this, they know that if they make a mistake or problem, everyone all around the world will come and say it's your mistake and you solved our data, our health, stuff like this. So they are trying to create standards and norms and stuff like this. The GDPR that was created in and this is used in Europe, it's a big saver, because the data, even if you buy the IoT device right now, in some form or way, you have to be informed what happens with the the data that is being stored. So it's not like you are helpless. But what I'm trying to show with this problem is the fact that the simplest way, as the clients think all around the world, is okay, we have a lot of money. What is cool and sexy right now? Smart bandana, the health bandanas, or stuff like this. Let's do it. How fast? In 6 months, and let's put it in the market and not think what's going to happen in the future. And this creates this weird two areas. One is for you as a customer who doesn't understand anything, let's say, and you buy and you think, oh my, the IoT is bad, it's not secure and stuff like that. And the second one is for the big clients, big product companies, because they know, okay, we're buying the products that are after the audit. There is a standard, there are norms, there are stuff like this. For them, everything is fine. To be honest, the anonymity of the data is so complex that even if some way did you hack them and have an access to their data, it's just numbers. Before you understand those numbers, it's way easier just to go to any person who's working them there and say, look, this is 10,000 euros, just tell me everything. Or even simple way, just go to the parking and toss some of the USB pen drives, and believe me, someone will put it in the computer. That's the easiest way, because the huge clients are secured. The things with the smart cities, so to answer, the same will go as with these players who create the standards and norm for the industry. So it's gonna be quite secure. You're gonna have anonymity. Yes, they will use it in some way and probably need to think about, let's say, an email that is sent to the people, or maybe some sort of account that you can access and check, oh, my city is right now checking me in forms of cameras and stuff like that. But don't be afraid of this. Be afraid of approach of companies who wants to be greedy or are too, they think we are the best because we work in the website industry, we work with the Android, iOS industry, so IoT should be the same. No, it's not. They don't have time, effort, money, knowledge to think about this. So that's why don't worry about smart cities, worry about smart products that are flooding the market right now.
Okay, awesome, great. We have one question from our viewer. They're asking, Marcin, how do you seek work in Poland by Polish government on regulating some of the products?
How do I see it in terms of what they're doing? What's my opinion on that?
How do you see work in Poland by Polish government on regulating some of the products?
Okay, if you're asking what's going to happen in future, I need to answer by what's happening right now. So basically, 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago, I was a part of a team who created report where Poland is when it comes to IoT right now and where it's supposed to be in 10 years. There were 3 divisions. One of them was the division that said the law is old, we need to do something about it. And right now, for the last couple of the months, that this team was creating step by step, what should we do it, where this information should be stored, how should we make sure that the standards that are the same for the industry should apply also for the people who are creating and the smart products like smart bandanas the consumers want. So the answer is, thankfully, we have people who are slowly but steadily, not only like in theory creating some dead regulation, but people who understand exactly, the people from the business, the people who are tech savvy, and they are telling the lawyers, look, this is our part, how technically it works. Your part is to make sure that it works from the point of regulations. So to answer you, we are on the good path. And in the future, I think if nothing bad is going to happen, we will have a good regulations. But the sad fact is, Polish government works very slowly, like very, very slowly. And instead of, hyperactive my approach, let's do it in 2 months, they like to do it in 2 years. And 2 years for technology by itself, it's quite a long period of time. But good news is they know what they are doing, and thank God they are not an old lawyers, but rather people who try to merge, tech savvy people, business, and also the lawyers. So we are on a good path.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Currently, I think those are all the questions for now. But like I said, always, it's never too late to ask questions. So if you
Absolutely.
come up with a question later, please write them on Discord, and then Marcin will try to answer them as soon as he can. So once again, Marcin, thank you very much for that very informative presentation.
Thank you also.
Thank you for joining us.